So the library changed a lot during the last decade. So what does it mean for the 21st century librarian? I'm going to talk about it with Rolf Hapel, here with me, all the way from Aarhus, Denmark. And he's the Director of Citizen Services and Libraries in Denmark. And Jacqueline Roelofs, and she's the Director of Libraries in Groningen. Welcome. Good to have you, both of you. So DOKK, the famous library in Aarhus, opened in 2015. What was the vision behind the library before you started building it?
The vision was actually created in a great co-op work with the citizens of Aarhus, of stakeholders, politicians, normal citizens, so to speak. And it boiled down to a place, a space for human development and interaction that would sort of promote lifelong learning, cultural experience, etc. And it should be obtained by a flexible building with a special focus on children and families.
Yeah, you mentioned flexible building because I can imagine it took from 1998 to 2015 to build it.
It did.
If it's not flexible, maybe it's outdated already.
That's right, and that was one of our things about this place was that we knew that in 1998 when we started, Google came along. In 2004, where we got the money for it, it was Facebook. In 2007, when beginning of competition, it was our smartphones. So we knew all along that technology would change over time. We also knew that maybe books are here or maybe books are not here in a relatively short period of time. So what should be the common denominator for this building? And it was human needs. We knew that human needs wouldn't change over time. I mean, 2,000 years ago, we need good acoustics, good view, a place to dwell, somewhere to be alone, somewhere to be together. And all these human needs was kind of the denominator. It was a place for human beings rather than for books or technology that we wanted to create.
And could you give an example of maybe some new activities that are now taking place in DOKK?
There are a lot of activities that are actually done by partners in the facility. As long as it's within the purpose of the libraries, lifelong learning, cultural experience, that kind of thing, we work with partners that could either be NGOs from the civil society or it could be public services, not from the private sector, commercial, market-driven companies, but for NGOs or public services. One could be mutual language training, where volunteers organized by one of the NGOs come in and work with immigrants, expats, etc., in teaching them Danish and learning Spanish or whatever language people come in with as a kind of benefit. That's just one thing.
Yeah. So you cooperate with other organizations.
Most certainly, and that's relatively new. I mean, we have done that since we opened.
How many organizations do you work with?
About 130 now.
130,
yeah,
wow. Yeah.
Right.
Jacqueline, as a Director of Libraries in Groningen, is this an inspiration for us in the Netherlands?
Yes, a very big inspiration. I was so lucky to visit Aarhus in 2017 and was also very inspired by this one sentence you always use: to which problems of society is the library the answer? And we visited DOKK. It was very impressive, also very huge. And in Groningen, we all have many small little libraries in rural countryside, on the countryside. So what could we take from Aarhus to this environment? Not a big city, but to the countryside.
And what do you take from it?
This vision of Aarhus of partnership and co-creation. And that's really important in small cities and small villages, because sometimes the library is the only thing that's left in those small villages. So working together with the inhabitants from those small cities is very important. So the library as a platform, that's how we call it. You call it mash-up library, I think.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the inspiration we took with us to the Netherlands.
Yeah. So library is changing. How does this change the role of the librarian?
The librarian is a much more sort of interactive person now. There are different roles. So it's comparable to, there are teaching roles, teaching, tutoring, facilitating. First and foremost, I think the librarian now is a facilitator of people's experiences, learning, etc. Setting up different formats for learning in the physical area. Also, of course, working with the digital services and the learning experiences derived from digital experiences. So there's a lot of various roles that applies for what we used to call librarians.
Yeah. Do you recognize that?
Yes, very, because we call massive library transitions, also the transition of staff into the new roles. It's not always easy for our staff to change in those new roles. Not everybody is suited with these roles, but it's very recognizable for us too. Yes, and the facilitator part is really important, because our staff always want to do everything themselves, because they think we have the knowledge. We are a librarian, so we have to do this by ourselves. And the co-workership and working really with citizens, something new for most of our staff.
And how does this change the role of the management?
Well, management, I think one of the crucial things in management is making space for citizens and for staff to make the sort of legitimacy of working in projects, creating, of course, some of the funding for it, making the politicians understand what is going on, and advocating for the new library sort of role is extremely important for, I think, management.
Yeah, and what do you see as challenges for this library? For this library. I mean, Gerard Leitner from IFLA mentioned some challenges and opportunities in this lecture today. What do you find the most important challenge now?
Well, I think there's some internal challenges that could have to do with the rapid change, because some things need to change fast. And then maybe sometimes the organizations are too stale, to not the lack of courage sometimes in management. I think could be a threat, kind of internally. There's a lot of sort of outcoming, you could call them threats, coming from the outside. Lack of funding as one. The idea that the libraries are obsolete because they're all about books and so on. So there's an abundance of threats, but there's many opportunities. And I think that aligning libraries with the political agenda is very important for the management of libraries. I'm not saying that libraries are going to be sort of solely instruments for problem solving for politicians, but it's very important to understand what is happening in society, and that applies to all levels of not only management in the library, but also librarians. I mean, we have librarians who have created tremendous services just by being aware of what is going on in the services. We had, for instance, 100 children days last year on DOKK, because a children's librarian was aware of something is going on here and worked together with an organization and setting that up, all by himself.
Do you understand this challenge?
Yes, very. It's the same in the Netherlands, I think. I think Denmark and the Netherlands are very alike. And it's a daily challenge for the management of libraries too. And we have one important saying in our organization is learning by doing, experimenting, and that's the difficult part for our management. Letting go of control and make space for everybody who wants to experiment.
Yeah, so you should be more flexible, experiment more, maybe also show politicians what you are doing.
Yes, this agile way of working is very important now, because from idea to implementation, it has to be very short, because tomorrow there's another technique or something else, so you have to work faster, flexible.
Very important.
And maybe also to round up, spread the knowledge. You're going to Seattle to teach at the library school.
Yes, I'm looking
How are you going to spread your knowledge there?
Well, I'm going to listen first of all, and then find out what is going on and what is the local surroundings. Where are the opportunities? And then I hope to be able to engage the students and the faculty members in a kind of discussion around these themes that we have just touched upon.
Yeah. Well, good luck with that and enjoy it. Thank you very much for being here, Rolf Hapel
Thank you.
and Jacqueline Roelofs.